Maya Richardson stood quietly at the front desk of the Grand Palmer Hotel, her Louis Vuitton briefcase resting beside her Manolo Blahnik heels. At 42 years old, she had grown accustomed to being the only black woman in many high-level business settings, but this situation felt different. The front desk manager's tight smile didn't reach his eyes as he continued typing on his computer, making her wait far longer than the white couple he had just checked in minutes ago. "I'm sorry, Ms. Richardson, but I'm unable to locate your reservation," Thomas Wells, the front desk manager, said with a practiced tone that suggested he wasn't sorry at all. His name tag gleamed under the crystal chandelier, matching the hotel's supposed five-star status. Maya maintained her composure, years of corporate negotiations evident in her calm demeanor. "That's strange. I have the confirmation email right here." She held up her phone, displaying the reservation details for the presidential suite she had booked for the upcoming tech conference. Wells barely glanced at the screen. Perhaps there was a system error. "Unfortunately, we're completely booked for the week due to the conference." He shuffled some papers on his desk, avoiding eye contact. Behind Maya, the lobby buzzed with activity. A white family walked in, and Wells' assistant immediately approached them with welcome drinks. Maya noticed how the staff's eyes skimmed past her as if she were invisible, despite her tailored Chanel suit and the Hermes bag that cost more than their monthly salaries. "I see," Maya said, reaching into her purse. She pulled out her American Express black card, the titanium surface catching the light. "Maybe we could double-check? The reservation was confirmed last month, and I specifically requested the presidential suite." Wells' expression tightened. He glanced at the card but didn't take it. "Ms. Richardson, perhaps I can suggest some other hotels in the area that might be more suitable for your needs." The meaning behind his words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Maya felt a familiar weight in her chest, the same feeling she'd experienced countless times before building her tech empire. She watched as another guest, a white man in a rumpled suit, approached the desk next to her and was immediately attended to with enthusiasm. "More suitable," Maya repeated softly, pulling out her phone again. This time, she opened her banking app, where her personal account showed a balance that could buy this hotel several times over. As the founder and CEO of Rick Tech Solutions, a company valued at $4.8 billion, Maya had fought through countless barriers of racism and sexism to reach her position. The front desk phone rang, and Wells answered it immediately, turning his back to Maya. "Grand Palmer Hotel, how may I assist you today?" His voice dripped with the warmth and professionalism that had been notably absent during their interaction. Maya took this moment to observe the lobby more carefully. She noticed how the security guard had subtly moved closer to her position, how the other guests gave her curious, sometimes suspicious glances. She saw a young black family being told the restaurant was fully booked, while watching white guests walk in freely. When Wells returned his attention to her, Maya had already made a decision. She slipped her black card back into her wallet and picked up her briefcase. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Wells," she said, her voice steady and clear. "Have a nice day," Wells replied, relief evident in his voice as he watched her walk away. What Wells didn't see was Maya's slight smile as she stepped into her waiting Tesla Model S. Her driver, James, looked at her questioningly through the rearview mirror. "Everything okay, Ms. Richardson?" Maya pulled out her phone and dialed her assistant. "Sarah, I need you to gather some information for me. Everything you can find about the Grand Palmer Hotel, ownership, financial status, history of complaints, everything." "Of course, Ms. Richardson. May I ask why?" Maya looked back at the Grand Hotel through the tinted windows, its elegant facade hiding an ugly truth. "Because, Sarah, I believe it's time for some changes in the hospitality industry. And we're going to start right here." As the car pulled away from the curb, Maya began typing notes on her tablet. She had built her tech empire by solving problems and creating solutions. This situation was just another problem to solve, another barrier to break down. Only this time, she wouldn't be doing it just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been told they were trying to stay somewhere unsuitable. Little did Thomas Wells know that his discriminatory actions that day would set in motion a chain of events that would completely transform the Grand Palmer Hotel and his own career. Forever. Back in her downtown office at Rick Tech Solutions, Maya Richardson sat at her desk, reviewing the preliminary information her assistant Sarah had gathered about the Grand Palmer Hotel. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of Boston's skyline, but Maya's attention was focused entirely on her computer screen. "Sarah, please come in," Maya called through the intercom. Her assistant, a young woman who had been with her for 3 years, entered with a thick folder. "Ms. Richardson, you won't believe what we found," Sarah said, spreading several documents across the mahogany desk. The hotel has a history of similar incidents, but they've managed to keep them quiet. Maya leaned forward, scanning the papers. There were screenshots of deleted social media posts, copies of unpublished complaint letters, and even a few settled lawsuits that have been buried under strict confidentiality agreements. All of them told similar stories: minorities being turned away, given poor service, or subjected to mysterious booking errors. "Look at this one," Sarah pointed to a particular document. "Last year, a black neurosurgeon was told the restaurant was fully booked, while white guests walked in freely. Sound familiar?" Maya nodded, remembering the scene she had witnessed in the lobby. She picked up another paper, a financial report that made her eyebrows raise. The hotel's occupancy rates are dropping, but they're still turning people away based on race. "That's not all," Sarah continued, pulling up more files on her tablet. "The Palmer Luxury Group, which owns the hotel, is drowning in debt. They're trying to keep it quiet, but they're barely staying afloat. Their CEO has been selling his shares slowly to avoid attention." Maya stood up and walked to the window, her reflection showing a determined expression. She had built her tech company from scratch, turning a small software startup into a billion-dollar enterprise. She knew how to spot opportunities, and this was definitely one. "Sarah, get me a meeting with our financial team," Maya said, turning back to her desk. "And contact James Chen from Asian Investment Partners. We've worked with him before, and he might be interested in this." Over the next few hours, Maya's office became a hub of quiet but intense activity. Financial analysts came and went, legal advisors offered their opinions, and Maya's personal broker started making discreet inquiries about Palmer Luxury Group's stock. "The company's shares are undervalued," explained David Cooper, her chief financial advisor, pointing to a graph. "If we move carefully, we could acquire a significant stake without raising too many eyebrows." Maya smiled, remembering Thomas Wells's dismissive attitude. How long would it take to gain controlling interest? 3 months, maybe 4, if we want to keep it quiet, David replied. "We'll need to use several investment vehicles to avoid attention." As the sun set over Boston, Maya's plan was taking shape. Her team had identified several other minority investors who had faced similar discrimination at luxury hotels. They would be perfect partners in this venture. She picked up a framed photo from her desk, a picture of her grandmother, who had worked as a housekeeper in a hotel not unlike the Grand Palmer. "Times are changing, Grandma," she whispered. Sarah knocked and entered again, this time with fresh coffee and more updates. "Ms. Richardson, I found something else. The hotel's staff turnover rate is extremely high, especially among minority employees. And guess who's been the front desk manager for the past 8 years? Thomas Wells," Maya said, not surprised. "Yes, and there's a pattern of complaints against him, all carefully buried by management." Maya took the coffee, her mind already racing with possibilities. This wasn't just about revenge or justice. It was about transformation. She could see the potential, a luxury hotel chain that truly welcomed everyone, that trained its staff in genuine hospitality, that could serve as a model for the entire industry. "Sarah, set up a secure conference room for tomorrow morning. We're going to need it all day," Maya instructed. "And get me everything you can find about successful hostile takeovers in the hospitality industry." As her office grew darker, Maya remained at her desk, methodically planning her next moves. This would be more than just a business acquisition. It would be a statement about power, prejudice, and progress. Thomas Wells had no idea that his discriminatory actions were about to backfire in the most spectacular way possible. Maya smiled as she closed the last file. Phase 1 of her plan was complete, gathering intelligence. Tomorrow, she would begin Phase 2, assembling her team for what would become one of the most talked about corporate takeovers in Boston's history. The next morning, Maya's conference room buzzed with energy as she met with her team of financial advisors. The glass walls offered a panoramic view of Boston's financial district, but everyone's attention was fixed on the presentation screen showing Palmer Luxury Group's financial details. "Ladies and gentlemen, Maya began, standing at the head of the long table. "We have an opportunity here that goes beyond just business." She clicked to the next slide, showing the hotel chain's current stock price. "Palmer Luxury Group is vulnerable, and we're going to acquire it." James Chen, her partner from Asian Investment Partners, nodded in agreement. Their stock has dropped 30% in the last year. The current management is struggling to maintain their luxury status while cutting costs. It's the perfect storm. Maya's team had discovered that the hotel chain's problems went deeper than surface discrimination. Poor management, outdated practices, and a toxic corporate culture had left the company weak. The CEO, Richard Palmer Ayala, had been selling his shares quietly, preparing for his own golden parachute. "We'll need to move carefully," advised Lisa Rodriguez, Maya's chief legal counsel. "If we attract too much attention, the stock price could spike, or worse, another buyer might step in." Maya walked around the table, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. "I want to create a plan that's both aggressive and discreet. We'll use multiple investment vehicles, different company names, and trusted partners." The strategy they developed over the next few hours was brilliant in its complexity. Maya's tech company would make small, regular purchases of Palmer stock through various subsidiaries. Meanwhile, James Chen's firm would approach from another angle, appearing to be an unrelated investor. "What about other potential allies?" asked David Cooper, looking up from his laptop. "There must be others who'd love to see Palmer Luxury Group under new management." Maya smiled, pulling up another slide. "I've already reached out to several minority business leaders who've had similar experiences at Palmer Hotels. They're ready to invest alongside us." The room grew excited as the plan took shape. They would create a network of seemingly unrelated investors, all working together under Maya's quiet direction. Each would buy just enough shares to avoid triggering regulatory reporting requirements. "The best part," Maya explained, pointing to the financial projections, "is that we can actually improve this business. The hotels have good bones. They just need proper management and a complete culture change." Sarah entered the room with fresh coffee and more documents. "Ms. Richardson, I found something interesting. The Palmer Family Trust, which holds 20% of the company, is looking for buyers. They're losing faith in the current management." This news energized the room. Maya turned to James Chen. "Can your firm approach the trust? They might be more comfortable selling to a well-known investment group." "Consider it done," James replied, already typing on his phone. As the meeting continued, Maya's team divided into smaller groups, each focused on different aspects of the takeover. The legal team started drafting documents, while the financial analysts ran numbers on various scenarios. "Remember," Maya addressed the room one final time, "absolute discretion is crucial. No one outside this room can know about our plans. As far as the world is concerned, these are all separate, unrelated investments in a struggling hotel chain." After the meeting, Maya sat alone in her office, reviewing the day's decisions. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "You might want to see this." Attached was a photo from the Grand Palmer Hotel's social media, showing Thomas Wells receiving an Employee of the Month award. Maya zoomed in on Wells's smug smile, the same expression he had worn while turning her away. "Enjoy it while you can, Mr. Wells," she murmured. She opened her laptop and began typing an email to her board of directors, carefully explaining her vision for this acquisition. It wasn't just about buying a hotel chain, it was about transforming an industry. She would create a new standard for luxury hospitality, one where excellence and inclusion went hand in hand. As the sun set over Boston, Maya finalized the first round of stock purchases. Phase 3 of her plan was now in motion. In boardrooms and investment offices across the city, pieces were quietly moving into place. The Grand Palmer Hotel's days of discrimination were numbered, though its current management didn't know it yet. Maya closed her laptop and gathered her things, ready to head home. Tomorrow would bring more meetings, more strategies, and more steps toward her goal. The game was on, and she was playing to win. 3 months into Maya's strategic plan, the corporate chess game was reaching its critical phase. Early morning sunlight streamed through her office windows as she reviewed the latest numbers on her tablet. Palmer Luxury Group's stock ownership had shifted dramatically, though few had noticed the pattern forming. "Ms. Richardson," Sarah rushed in, excitement clear in her voice. "James Chen just called." The Palmer Family Trust agreed to sell their entire 20% stake. They signed the papers this morning. Maya's face broke into a rare, broad smile. This was the piece they had been waiting for. Combined with the shares they had already acquired through various channels, they now controlled just over 48% of the company. Send champagne to James's office, Maya instructed, then paused. Actually, make that 2 bottles. He's earned it. The phone on her desk buzzed. It was Lisa Rodriguez, her legal counsel. Maya, Palmer's CEO, just called an emergency board meeting. They'd finally figured out what's happening. Right on schedule, Maya replied calmly. She had predicted this moment. Richard Palmer Aya wasn't known for his business acumen, but even he couldn't ignore the massive shift in share ownership forever. In the Palmer Luxury Group's main boardroom across town, chaos was erupting. Richard Palmer Aya, a silver-haired man in his 60s, stood at the head of the table, his face red with anger. "How did we miss this?" he shouted at his advisors. "Who are all these new shareholders?" His financial team scrambled through papers, trying to trace the complex web of investments that had been carefully orchestrated by Maya's team. Each purchase had seemed innocent enough on its own: small investment firms, overseas funds, individual investors, but together they formed a massive voting bloc. Back in her office, Maya prepared for the next phase. She opened a secure file on her computer labeled Operation Transform and began reviewing the changes she planned to implement. The hotel chain wouldn't just change ownership, it would undergo a complete cultural revolution. "Sarah, is everything ready for tomorrow's announcement?" Maya asked. "Yes, ma'am. The press release is drafted, the legal documents are prepared, and our PR team is standing by. We've also gathered all the discrimination complaints from the past 5 years, just in case we need them." Maya nodded approvingly. She had learned long ago that in business, it was best to be prepared for every scenario. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was David Cooper. "Maya, you won't believe this," he said excitedly. "Palmer just tried to implement a poison pill defense, but they can't. Their own corporate bylaws prevent it without approval from 60% of shareholders." Maya allowed herself a small laugh. She had discovered this detail months ago during their initial research. It was one of the reasons she had chosen this particular target. The rest of the day passed in a blur of activity. Maya's team worked tirelessly, coordinating with lawyers, investors, and PR specialists. By evening, everything was in place for tomorrow's big reveal. As she prepared to leave the office, Maya received one final piece of news. A small video clip from the Grand Palmer Hotel's security cameras showed Thomas Wells turning away another minority guest, using the same excuse about lost reservations he had used with her. "Perfect timing," Maya muttered, forwarding the clip to her legal team. This would make tomorrow's announcement even more impactful. That night, Maya sat in her penthouse apartment, looking out over the city lights. She thought about her grandmother, who had cleaned hotel rooms for decades, always entering through the back door. She thought about all the people who had been humiliated and turned away, just like she had been. "Tomorrow changes everything," she said to herself, picking up a folder marked New Management Structure. Inside was a complete reorganization plan, including a new diversity and inclusion officer position, updated hiring policies, and mandatory sensitivity training for all employees. Her phone lit up with a message from James Chen. "Final share count confirmed. We've got them." Maya sent back a simple thumbs-up emoji. Tomorrow, the business world would wake up to shocking news: an unprecedented hostile takeover of one of Boston's most prestigious hotel chains. But more importantly, they would wake up to a message about power, justice, and change. As she prepared for bed, Maya set 2 alarms for the morning. She wanted to be early for tomorrow's board meeting, the one where she would walk into Palmer Luxury Group not as a rejected guest, but as its new majority owner. The morning after the takeover, Maya sat in her new office at Palmer Luxury Group headquarters, quietly reviewing personnel files. Her victory had been swift and complete, but she knew the real work was just beginning. The morning newspapers were still running headlines about the surprising takeover, but Maya had already moved on to phase 5 of her plan: transformation from within. "Miss Richardson," Sarah entered with a thick stack of employee records. "Here are the files you requested from all Palmer hotels. The pattern of discrimination is disturbing." Maya nodded. picking up the file marked Grand Palmer Hotel. She opened it to find Thomas Wells' employment record sitting right on top. His personnel file showed a history of customer complaints that had been consistently buried or dismissed by previous management. "Have our HR team start the audit today," Maya instructed. "I want every complaint, every incident, everything that was swept under the rug. And Sarah, make sure our new diversity officer arrives by noon." Dr. Jessica Martinez, the newly appointed Chief Diversity Officer, arrived precisely at noon. A highly respected expert in corporate culture change, she had left her prestigious consulting firm the moment Maya had called with this opportunity. "The problems run deeper than we thought," Dr. Martinez said, spreading documents across Maya's desk. "It's not just the frontline staff. The discrimination is systemic, built into their hiring practices, promotion patterns, even their vendor selection." Maya leaned back in her chair, taking in the information. "Then we'll change it all," she said firmly. "Every policy, every procedure, every practice." Throughout the day, Maya's team worked methodically. They reviewed security footage from all hotels, analyzed customer complaint patterns, and examined employee demographics. The findings confirmed what Maya had experienced firsthand. The discrimination wasn't isolated, it was institutional. Around 3 o'clock, Sarah rushed in with urgent news. "Ms. Richardson, we just received word that Thomas Wells is still turning away minority guests at the Grand Palmer. He doesn't know about the ownership change yet." Maya smiled slightly. She had intentionally kept the transition quiet at the hotel level, wanting to observe normal operations before making changes. "Is the camera system still recording?" "Yes, everything is being documented." "Good. Let him continue for one more day. We'll need the evidence for tomorrow's staff meeting." As evening approached, Maya met with her new executive team. The conference room was filled with faces that would have never been seen in Palmer Luxury Group's leadership before: women, minorities, young innovators who had been overlooked by the old guard. "Starting tomorrow," Maya announced, "we implement phase 1 of our transformation plan. Every hotel will receive new training materials, updated policies, and a clear message: discriminate against anyone, and you're gone. No warnings, no second chances." Dr. Martinez presented the new inclusion training program she had developed. It would be mandatory for all employees, from housekeeping to management. The program wasn't just about avoiding discrimination. It was about creating a genuinely welcoming environment for all guests. "What about the current employees?" someone asked. "Everyone gets one chance to adapt to the new culture," Maya replied. "Those who can't or won't change will be replaced. We're not just changing policies, we're changing hearts and minds." Later that night, Maya walked alone through the quiet halls of the Grand Palmer Hotel. Most staff didn't recognize her. She was just another face to them, another guest to judge by the color of her skin. She observed how employees interacted with different customers, making mental notes for tomorrow's changes. Back in her office, she finalized the memo that would go out to all hotels in the morning. It was simple but powerful. "To all Palmer Luxury Group employees. Effective immediately, this company is under new ownership and management. Our mission is to provide exceptional service to all guests, regardless of their race, ethnicity, gender, or background. This is not a suggestion. This is not a guideline. This is our fundamental principle. Training sessions begin tomorrow. Attendance is mandatory. Your continued employment depends on your full commitment to our new vision. Welcome to the new Palmer Luxury Group." Signed, Maya Richardson, CEO and owner. She sealed the envelope containing Wells's termination notice, placing it on top of tomorrow's distribution pile. The old Palmer Luxury Group would end tomorrow, and a new era would begin. As Maya gathered her things to leave, she smiled at the thought of tomorrow's staff meeting at the Grand Palmer Hotel. Thomas Wells was about to learn a valuable lesson about judging people by their appearance. 6 months after the takeover, Maya Richardson stood outside the Grand Palmer Hotel on a bright morning, dressed in a perfectly tailored blue Armani suit. This time, she wasn't coming as a rejected guest. She was arriving as the owner. Her driver, James, opened the car door with a knowing smile. "Good luck, Ms. Richardson," he said, understanding the significance of this moment. Maya walked through the revolving doors, her heels clicking confidently on the marble floor. The lobby looked the same as it had 6 months ago, but today everything would change. She noticed a few new faces among the staff, part of the diversity initiatives she had implemented. But Thomas Wells was still at his usual spot behind the front desk. As she approached the desk, Wells barely looked up from his computer. "Good morning," he said dismissively, his tone carrying the same prejudiced undertone she remembered. "Good morning, Mr. Wells," Maya replied calmly. "I have a meeting with the general manager." Wells glanced at her with the same condescending expression he had worn 6 months ago. "Do you have an appointment? Mr. Peterson is very busy today." "Oh, he'll see me," Maya said, her voice steady. "You might want to join us too." Wells frowned, clearly annoyed. "Ma'am, I don't know who you are, but you can't just—" "Actually, Mr. Wells," Maya interrupted, reaching into her briefcase, "I'm the new owner of this hotel, and we need to have a conversation about your employment history." The color drained from Wells's face as Maya placed her business card on the counter. Behind her, Sarah entered the lobby with Dr. Martinez and the new HR director. Hotel staff began gathering, watching the scene unfold. "If you'll follow me," Maya said, "we have a staff meeting in the main conference room. Everyone's attendance is required." Wells stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing without words. The other employees started moving toward the conference room, whispering among themselves. Many had already guessed what was about to happen. In the conference room, Maya took her place at the head of the table. The room was packed with staff from every department: housekeeping, maintenance, restaurant servers, front desk personnel. Wells sat near the back, his earlier arrogance replaced by visible anxiety. "Good morning, everyone," Maya began. "6 months ago, I came to this hotel as a guest. Mr. Wells here informed me there was no reservation under my name, despite my confirmation. He suggested I might be more comfortable somewhere else." The room fell silent. Several employees looked at Wells, who seemed to be shrinking in his chair. Maya continued, clicking through a presentation showing security footage of similar incidents. This wasn't an isolated event. Over the past 6 years, there have been 73 documented cases of discrimination at this hotel alone. 73 times when guests were turned away, mistreated, or made to feel unwelcome because of their race. Dr. Martinez stepped forward, distributing new employee handbooks. "Starting today, this hotel operates under new policies. Discrimination of any kind will result in immediate termination." Maya walked around the room as she spoke. "I bought this hotel chain not just as a business investment, but as a statement. Luxury and hospitality should be available to everyone who can afford it, regardless of their race, gender, or background." She stopped beside Wells, who was staring at the table. "Mr. Wells, your employment with the Grand Palmer Hotel is terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you to clear out your desk." As Wells was led out, Maya addressed the remaining staff. "Everyone else has a choice. You can embrace our new inclusive culture and be part of positive change, or you can find employment elsewhere. The old Palmer Luxury Group is dead. Welcome to a new era." The room erupted in applause, led by several employees who had witnessed discrimination but felt powerless to stop it. Maya saw tears in the eyes of some minority staff members who had suffered silently under the old regime. As the meeting concluded, Maya watched Wells leave the hotel for the last time, carrying a small box of personal items. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The man who had once turned people away was now being turned away himself. Sarah approached with the day's schedule. "The press is waiting outside for a statement. Would you like to address them?" Maya straightened her jacket. "Yes, it's time to tell our story. The world needs to know that change is possible, one business at a time." The news of Maya Richardson's dramatic takeover and transformation of the Grand Palmer Hotel spread like wildfire through the hospitality industry. 3 months after Wells's termination, the hotel had become a case study in successful corporate culture change. National media outlets picked up the story, running headlines like "From Rejected Guest to Revolutionary Owner," "How One Woman Changed the Hotel Industry." Business schools began using Maya's takeover strategy as a teaching example, while civil rights organizations celebrated her approach to fighting discrimination through economic power. On a busy Friday morning, Maya sat in her office at the hotel, reviewing the latest performance reports with Dr. Martinez. The numbers told an impressive story. Bookings are up 45% compared to last year, Dr. Martinez said, pointing to a graph. And our guest satisfaction scores have never been higher. It turns out treating everyone with respect is good for business. Sarah entered with more positive news. Ms. Richardson, the National Hotel Association wants you to give the keynote speech at their annual conference. And 3 other hotel chains have reached out about implementing our diversity training program. Maya smiled, remembering how Thomas Wells's story had gone viral. He had tried to give interviews painting himself as a victim, but security footage of his discriminatory actions had quickly silenced his protests. Last she heard, he was working at a small motel outside the city, where his old attitudes were no longer welcome. The transformation of the Grand Palmer Hotel had been comprehensive. The new staff reflected the diversity of their guests, with people of all backgrounds in leadership positions. The old, stuffy atmosphere had been replaced by genuine warmth and professionalism. "Look at this," Dr. Martinez said, showing Maya her phone. A famous black actor had just tweeted about his experience at the hotel. "First time I've walked into a luxury hotel and felt truly welcome. The Grand Palmer sets a new standard. Hashtag change is possible." Maya walked through the lobby, observing the subtle but significant changes. The doorman greeted every guest with the same genuine smile. The front desk staff were efficient and professional with everyone. In the restaurant, tables were assigned based on availability, not appearance. A young black girl pointed at Maya as she passed, tugging on her mother's sleeve. "Mom, that's her. That's the lady from my school report." Maya stopped to chat with them. The girl, about 12, had written a paper titled "Modern Day Heroes" about Maya's transformation of the hotel. It was moments like these that made everything worthwhile. Later that afternoon, Maya hosted a meeting with aspiring minority entrepreneurs in the hotel's conference room. The program, called Future Leaders in Hospitality, was her way of ensuring long-term change in the industry. "Success is the best revenge," she told the eager audience. "But it's not enough to just succeed. We must use our success to open doors for others." After the meeting, Maya received an unexpected visitor, Richard Palmer Ayoy, the former CEO. He had requested a meeting, and she had decided to grant it. "Ms. Richardson," he said, looking uncomfortable in the lobby where so much discrimination had once taken place. I owe you an apology. I should have seen what was happening in my hotels. I should have stopped it." Maya studied him carefully. "Acknowledgement is the first step, Mr. Palmer, but actions speak louder than words. What are you doing now to fight discrimination?" He told her about his new role teaching business ethics at a local college, using his own failures as lessons for future business leaders. Maya nodded approvingly. Perhaps some good had come from him too. That evening, as Maya prepared to leave, she received a special email. The city council had voted to present her with a key to the city for her contributions to civil rights and business ethics. The ceremony would be held at the Grand Palmer Hotel. "How's that for irony?" she murmured to herself, remembering the day she had been turned away from this very building. As she walked through the lobby one last time that day, she saw a diverse group of guests checking in, all receiving the same excellent service. A magazine on the coffee table caught her eye. She was on the cover, under the headline, "The Woman Who Turned Rejection into Revolution." Maya picked up the magazine, thinking about how far they'd come and how far they still had to go. The Grand Palmer was just the beginning. There were other industries, other battles to fight. But for now, she allowed herself to enjoy this victory, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been judged by the color of their skin rather than the content of their character. 1 year after Maya Richardson's historic takeover, the Grand Palmer Hotel hosted a special anniversary celebration. The ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers, but the real brilliance came from the diverse crowd of guests, employees, and business leaders gathered to celebrate a remarkable transformation. Maya stood at the podium, looking out at the packed room. In the front row sat her former driver, James, now the hotel's head of transportation services. Next to him was Sarah, recently promoted to Executive Vice President of Operations. Dr. Martinez beamed proudly from her seat, knowing their diversity programs had become the industry standard. 1 year ago, Maya began her speech. "I was turned away from this very hotel. Today, we're celebrating not just a change in ownership, but a revolution in hospitality." The screens behind her displayed impressive numbers. Hotel profits up 40%, employee satisfaction at record highs, and a waiting list of people wanting to work at what had become known as the most inclusive luxury hotel in America. But numbers don't tell the whole story, Maya continued. The real success is in the lives we changed. She gestured to Maria Rodriguez, a former housekeeper who had been promoted to hotel manager after Maya discovered her business degree and years of ignored potential. Then to David Chen, a young Asian American chef who had finally been given the chance to run the hotel's prestigious restaurant, earning it a Michelin star. The audience applauded as Maya announced the hotel's newest initiative, the Future Hoteliers Scholarship Program. Starting next month, we will provide full college scholarships to minority students pursuing careers in hospitality management. 10 scholarships every year, forever. In the back of the room, a familiar face appeared. Thomas Wells had snuck in, perhaps hoping to witness what had become of his former workplace. He watched as Maya introduced the hotel's new training program, now being adopted by hotel chains worldwide. "Mr. Wells," Maya acknowledged him, surprising everyone. "Thank you for coming. You taught us all an important lesson. Success is the best answer to discrimination. This hotel's transformation began with your actions, though not in the way you intended." Wells slipped out quietly, but his brief appearance only highlighted how far the hotel had come. Where he had once spread discrimination, there was now opportunity. Where there had been exclusion, there was now welcome. Maya unveiled the hotel's new motto, now engraved in the lobby: "Luxury belongs to everyone." The phrase had become a movement, inspiring other businesses to examine their own practices. "But our work isn't finished," Maya declared. "Today, I'm announcing the acquisition of 3 more hotel chains. We will bring the same transformation across the country, one hotel at a time." The crowd erupted in applause. Industry experts in the audience knew what this meant. Maya Richardson was building an empire, one based on inclusion and excellence. After the speeches, Maya walked through the hotel, remembering that first day of rejection. The front desk, where Wells had once turned her away, was now staffed by a rainbow of faces, each trained to treat every guest like royalty. The restaurants were full of diverse patrons, served by an equally diverse staff. In the hotel's newly opened business center, a wall displayed photos of successful minority entrepreneurs who had started their journeys in the hotel's mentorship program. Next to it hung a frame containing Maya's original rejected reservation, a reminder of how far they'd come. As the evening wound down, a young black girl approached Maya with a hotel notepad and pen. "Ms. Richardson, I want to be like you when I grow up. I want to change things." Maya knelt down to the girl's level. "What's your name?" "Hope," the girl replied. "Well, Hope." Maya smiled. "Remember this, sometimes the people who reject you are actually giving you an opportunity. They're showing you what needs to be changed in the world." Later that night, as the last guests departed, Maya stood in the quiet lobby. The Grand Palmer Hotel had become more than just a business success. It was a symbol of what was possible when power was used to create positive change. She touched the new plaque in the lobby, its words gleaming under the soft lights. "Welcome to the Grand Palmer Hotel, where luxury knows no color and excellence knows no bounds." As Maya walked to her car, she smiled at the thought of tomorrow. There were more hotels to transform, more barriers to break, more lives to change. But tonight, in this place where she was once rejected, she had proven that the best revenge wasn't just success. It was using that success to open doors for others. The end.